Good morning, Illini. Welcome back to Healthy Illini Podcast. I am your host, as always, Matt Schrock, and I'm glad you're here with us. We are coming out of the Thanksgiving break, so if you're on campus, you're trying to get back into the rhythm a little bit. You had that little bit of taste of freedom and home or not having classes, but it's time to jump back into it. But today, we want to talk about another thing that happens during end of November and December, and that's about meals and holiday foods and the things you eat during this time of year. So we're going to jump right into it. Today, I'm joined by two of our dietitians, or actually our two dietitians here at McKinley Health Center. And I'm excited to have them come in and kind of share on this. First, a return guest, Bree Whitted, who, Bree, you've been on a number of our episodes, and so I appreciate you coming back.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And with her is our newest dietitian, Audra Cisna. Audra has joined us here, and so she's helping in our health ed department, seeing patients and things like that. Audra, thanks for being here.
Thank you.
So, for a lot of us, when the holiday season comes upon us, that means holiday foods. And it can mean big meals, big gatherings. It can be just the snacks that people make throughout the season, or, I make throughout the season sometimes, different types of food that we regularly eat. There's certain things that seem to be like comfort foods during the holiday season, things like that. But that the season can cause a lot of stress and anxiety for a lot of people in a lot of different areas. And what we eat can certainly be on that list for a number of people. But it doesn't have to be stress-inducing, and it doesn't have to be a scary or bad time when it comes to food. So I really wanted to talk to you today about some tips you might have to help navigate holiday foods, holiday events, come out on the other side feeling good about ourselves. So let's start with just kind of how to prepare when we're going into the holiday season. I know we just had the Thanksgiving holiday, but from Thanksgiving to Christmas, there's just a lot of food that's involved in there a lot of times. And so how do you prepare, or how should someone approach this time and their plate when they're looking at the holiday meals?
Well, I think one of the biggest things, I talk to students a lot, not just about food, but about just overall healthy habits and how important sleep is in that. So I know that all of you as students are coming out of a very busy time where you've probably been cutting yourself short on sleep. So I think one of the biggest things you can do over these breaks is to give yourself a break. And that should help kind of alleviate some of the stress that you might feel, whether it's related to food or not related to food. But make sure that you're finding ways to support yourself, to connect socially, which is important because we know that you might have been neglecting some of those like fun activities too, but make sure that you are approaching it all with balance as far as like getting enough rest.
I would also prioritize like thinking about the holiday seasons, and some of those, off times when our routines may not always be normal, but to keep consistency. So especially like thinking about meal skipping because I'm having this large event or going to this party. So, I'll save my calories up for that time. We don't want you to do that. The more consistent that you can be in your schedule, like not skipping breakfast, not skipping lunch, will actually help you feel a little bit more prepared and more in control of like your food choices during those events. So be mindful about your meals. Make sure you're getting your protein in. That'll help keep you full longer, whole grains, fruits, vegetables. And don't let those parties and those occasions like sway you from your general like day-to-day normal habits.
So in doing that, I know that one of the big issues, well, I shouldn't say one of, I know a big issue for some people is the idea of that skipping meals and then you binge later, and it's kind of that cycle of for some people guilt. For me, it's guilt. If I skip a meal and then I eat a whole bunch later, because I don't feel good when I overeat anyway. So it's that whole thing. So if I do want to eat more than usual at a meal that's upcoming, still not skipping that meal before, how do I kind of balance the two? Or how do you go into the idea that I'm going to walk into this event, there's going to be a ton of food. I'm going to have some options to look at. How do you plan ahead of time for enjoying that event, but not overdoing it.
Yeah. I like to think about kind of a concept of like have a little bit of everything, but not a lot of anything. So still enjoying like what's being served and allowing yourself that opportunity to enjoy those foods, but also checking in with yourself during that time and thinking like, how am I feeling? How is my body? Is this too much food? Is this not enough food? Bree and I both talk a lot about the hunger and fullness scale, like with our patients, kind of those intuitive eating principles of that, like stop and check in. Am I at an 8 or a 9 and I feel overly full to the point of being uncomfortable? We obviously don't want to eat that way. We don't want to feel miserable. And so, just kind of that like check-in of stopping when you're content and satisfied. And that might just be one bite of something, but you're trying 7 or 8 different things, and that's okay.
And I like you mentioned checking yourself in, and I think you kind of dropped the idea of intuitive eating. Yeah. And just as kind of an aside, we did actually do a podcast with Bree on intuitive eating back in March, episode 68. So if you're looking for it on Spotify or Apple or wherever you are, if you want to check out episode 68, that is intuitive eating. That goes more in depth of what that means. I think that was a really informative for me. I learned a lot actually just sitting in that podcast because I think that's a huge advantage when you go into the idea of intuitive eating, that you can use that during this time of year especially. You mentioned, just a little bit of bite of this or that kind of thing. But and one thing I never thought about, I kind of read in the prep work that we did, was to not only have a plan to go in, but when you get there, to make a plan, to kind of scan. How would you do that as dietitians? How would you look at that? Do you just look at, for flavors? Are you looking for types of food? How do you make that plan when you look at a huge spread, if it may be some sort of holiday family gathering, whatever, that has a whole bunch? How would you approach that to kind of make sure that you have a balanced plate in the middle of it?
So I think about this, maybe my kids kind of taught me this method, because like they're always going to want to go after certain things, and I have to kind of encourage them to try other options besides just the bread rolls, and 6 of them. So, we always kind of like scan it and say like, okay, what are like the options you want to have? And, we talk about food groups. Like I talk about it with them, like, well, you've already got a bread roll, so maybe we try to choose something that has some protein. And what are we going to have? Like, what's your favorite vegetable option that's up here? But I think scanning it too to see where some of your favorite foods are. Because I don't know if you go down, like if your family sets it up like a buffet and you go down and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, shoot, I wanted like the sweet potato casserole and I don't have any room left on my plate. So I think just trying to see like what options are there for you that you want to make sure that you include, or that you choose as some of like your, like couple bites of something. Do you guys do that too, Audra? Or?
Yeah. And just like enjoying those foods and realizing like having that balance might mean a fruit, a vegetable, a potato, a protein. But like if your favorite is that dinner roll, like still enjoying that and having that, allowing that as well.
There's something to be said for when you're, because I find myself, but the problem I find sometimes is when I'm at a gathering like this, when we go to my in-laws Thanksgiving, there's like 60 people there and everybody brings food. So the massive amount of options is wild. And I find myself sometimes I'll fill my plate to like where I can't put more food on it, and I'll eat it really fast so I can go get more of something else. And that actually backfires on me because I don't actually enjoy anything I ate. And so then I overeat because I want to try to say something. So, there's something to be said for savoring and does that play a part into, if you do take your time with your food, does that play a part to prevent from overeating?
Yeah, absolutely. And like knowing what foods you really enjoy and prioritizing those. Like, so if you don't have sweet potato casserole all but once or twice a year, and that's your favorite, and you could kind of really care less about the mashed potato, like choose that sweet potato casserole with maybe a little bit more sugar or pecans or whatever in it. Enjoy it, savor it, and take your time. And I think that also goes back to the not skipping meals prior to. Like, you're not going to overeat quite as much if you've prioritized other meals throughout the day. So slowing that process down, chewing your foods really, really well, putting your utensils down in between your bites, and then holding a conversation with those at your table. Like, those are all things that sometimes we just forget about doing. You know, we get in a hurry, we get in a rush, but that food is still going to be there. You know, it's likely going to be left over in your refrigerator. People are going to bring to-go containers and things like that. They want you to take some of that food home. Food will be there the next day.
You mentioned the conversation, and that was something else that was in the prep that I really hadn't thought a whole lot about. When I read it, I was like, well, that makes a whole lot of sense, but I hadn't really thought of it. Is that, especially in the idea that I don't want to overeat, that I don't want to indulge too much and feel bad afterwards, that non-food activities can actually play a part into that. Would you want to share on that a little bit, kind of how that factors in, like whether it's a gathering or just week to week, how non-food activities can actually influence how you approach your plate?
You mean as far as like activity, like including activity?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think I've over the last like week or two, I've been talking to students, you know, and I'll ask them just, you know, from a personal standpoint, like, what are you looking forward to most at break? And it's always fun to hear what students or individuals kind of like look forward to most, you know, and some of it is a particular recipe that grandma makes, or, you know, spending time in the kitchen with mom or dad or aunts or uncles, or the family members that are going to be there. So I think just making sure that you're taking advantage of those relationships and the time that you have with them. But we plan things, you know, like maybe it's a walk to the park or a hike outside or a flag football game. I have a house full of boys, and so inevitably it's always going to probably be something that involves sports. But just trying to get the whole group outside, you know, even if someone's not able to participate, like encourage them to like sit down and watch. And it can be card games around the table, fun crafts. Do you guys have any other ideas, Audra?
Taking a walk to the park, even though Thanksgiving has passed, like the holiday turkey trats, those holiday fun walk runs type of events are always good, like to start your day, just to get a little bit of activity. But like just cherishing those moments where you have family that are like from out of town in different states, and taking time and just having conversation with them is really important too.
And that activity can be so helpful for anyone who's listening and dealing with the idea of trying to avoid overeating, trying to avoid the binging, things like that. I'm thinking back on my own life that where I really get in trouble, I tend to grab too much at the actual meal. That's one thing I have to work on too, and that's the planning the plate. But it's the after. If there's nothing going on, I tend to graze. When I'm kind of chilling, kind of like, I don't know what to do. I'm going to go get one more piece of pie. Oh, I'm going to get another bite of this. I'm going to get that. And that's where I really get myself in trouble, because the meal has ended. For the next 30 minutes, I'm still kind of snacking, and then I feel awful later. So those activities can be huge, and those are incredible suggestions. We're almost out of time, but before I do want to ask one more thing. You've both kind of mentioned in various places being kind to yourself, being, you know, just understanding that you're going to enjoy something, you're going to want something. Let's say somebody has all the best intentions, has a good plan, comes out after an event and just like, I ate too much. And they start to have that downward spiral of guilt, poor self-image, that sort of thing. what's something they can do on the backside, like the meal, the event's over in the coming week? What do you do to kind of balance your plate out again, or to kind of reset and put yourself in a position to move forward?
Yeah. I would say just keep it in mind that it's one day. It's one day where we might be having a big gathering, and tomorrow is a new day. So getting back on track on what is your normal, like keeping that normal routine consistent, being kind to yourself, like giving yourself a little bit of grace. And, maybe you didn't want to have the sweets, but you overate on the sweets or something like that. Make sure like you drink plenty of water the next day. Getting that in is really, really important on a daily basis, no matter what. But as long as you're not beating yourself up over it consistently, like move on,
Audra and I had a little bit of a conversation earlier too about like this probably isn't the time to set new unrealistic goals for yourself. Like now is probably not the time to take on a new weight loss venture or something that you're going to feel disappointment about later if you're not able to accomplish it. Not to say that you can't still maintain your current goals, but don't set yourself up for too much. Like that might just add unneeded stress to like the situation right now. So focus on maintenance, focus on consistency, and hopefully that should help you kind of manage the season.
That's one of the biggest things in this time, and it's not just with eating, but a lot of things that you have, with eating, you eat a lot during the holiday season, so you swing the pendulum the other way. I'm going to get really healthy, and then you I do it all the time, that I set these really unrealistic goals. That
Well, marketing tactics know that. So that's going to be surrounding you on social media, on the TV, on magazines, like at the checkout counters.
So there is a lot of that kind of influence and voices coming around. So this actually leads into the last thing I wanted to say I wanted to ask you about, is that I know we're short on the semester, there's only a couple weeks left, but during this time, coming back from the semester and the January when a lot of resolution type things happen anyway, if somebody wanted to come talk to you about this idea of setting plans and have a voice in their ear that isn't the marketing voice, what kind of appointments can you do, and how would someone set up an appointment if a student wanted to come talk to you here at McKinley? How would they set that appointment up?
Well, students have access to us at no additional fee or charge or anything. You don't have to have a referral to meet with us either. So you can call McKinley, call the health education department, and just ask to be put on our schedule. We will have, a little bit of like time where we actually get to spend off of work too. So if you call in on Christmas Day or New Year's Day, just know that phone call might be returned later. But yeah, please schedule an appointment. We can talk about, whatever concerns you might have related to food, nutrition, the timing of it all, how to create some consistent patterns for you when you get back into the new spring semester.
The realistic goal setting, we can absolutely help you with that too.
And you do have options for in-person and telehealth, correct?
Correct.
So if a student is kind of busy, is like, I don't have time to make it over to McKinley, they live on the other side of campus, whatever it may be, they do have options to connect with you. Well, I appreciate you both taking the time today to talk about this. It in some ways, it's a conversation that isn't had very often, but it's a really important conversation to have, especially around the holiday season when food, especially in the Midwest, food is a staple of a lot of things that we do. So I appreciate you both coming in and sharing and giving some tips. The end of this calendar year is finals for a lot of students, and that's really where a lot of focus on campuses go. But it's also the holiday season for a lot of people, and that means gatherings, and gatherings often mean food. And whether it's something that you look forward to or dread, there's always tips that you can have on how to balance out those meals, balance out those options, and navigate this time of year without having that binge crash cycle or having any kind of guilt in that it's an opportunity to enjoy things that you enjoy and enjoy it with people that you enjoy. And so if you have any questions about this or in general throughout the year on how to plan out a meal, how to have a good self-image during that time, how to like your plate, how to approach your plate, any of those types of things, please reach out to us here at McKinley. You can talk to the health ed department. Those links are in our bio as always. And schedule an appointment with one of our dietitians. They'd be happy to help and talk with you, because we really are here to try and help you through your time here on campus and to try and walk alongside you as you're striving for your goals. But thank you for joining us today. You are on a personal journey no matter where you are in it. You are important and you matter. Your health and wellness are important and matter. And we are here to keep you well to excel. Go have a great week, Illini. Let us know how you're doing, and we'll catch you next time on Healthy Illini.